Mitch, it's kind of funny you bring that up because I hear a lot of corollaries there, at least the way I feel about certain guys and the University of Nebraska, where like I want guys that want to be there, right? Where
Hmm.
we sort of gravitate, whether it's to, Matt Rule as the head coach or whether it's to certain players like a Jace Reynolds that, decides to stay in state and be there. Like, is that I don't know, like is that just like a uniquely Midwest thing where it's like we want our for whatever reason, we want our guys to want us as much as we want them.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're in New York or LA or Dallas, like that probably doesn't come into the equation quite as much. Maybe because a lot of people want to be there and not everybody. It takes a unique person, a specific kind of person to want to be in Kansas City in a small market, or to play football at Nebraska when there's more glamorous locations that exist in their own conference, or around the country. Sure, I can see that, and there definitely some parallels between those situations. Yeah, Nebraska football like has succeeded over the years and won championships because it maximized what it was getting out of the people who most wanted to be there. Like if you're just like lukewarm on it, then it's probably not for you.
Hey, let me ask you something, Mitch. I kind of intimated this talking to you a little while ago, and I'm still waiting on the house settlement. We're all still waiting on the house
Mm-hmm.
settlement stuff. And
Today.
I was like, I have this particular affinity and appreciation for how malleable Coach Rule and Coach Dannen, Troy Dannen have been kind of working this situation, right? We touched on
Uh-huh.
top
Uh-huh.
last week. For me to feel really good, or for you to say, you know what, DB, you're right. Like their ability to adjust is blank. Do they need to? Do they have to win, or can they get, or will they? Do you think get credit for handling and manipulating the situation to put themselves, whether it's the front office or the admin, or how they kind of have the silos now with recruiting and retention and a GM? Do they have to win, in your opinion, for it to truly appreciate how I think they're staying ahead of a very fluctuating bell curve?
Yeah. I mean, because the alternative is that you're losing more than you're winning, and it rings pretty hollow. Even if it looks like you're doing all the right things and you got the right approach and have the right people and they have the right mindset, which I feel is the case with Rule and Dannen in charge of this thing. If you don't win games, then what are we really talking about? I mean, you can still point to things and you could say, well, the circumstances are tough, but are they really? Like, did you see the number in the Big Ten that
Oh, 900,
Nebraska's getting?
whatever
Yeah,
it was.
right. And it's going to go up. It's going to go up next year. They're going to get an additional 10 million in their share.
That might be low, by the way. They may go from like
Sure.
63 to 75 or 6.
Yeah, it's going to be over 70 million. Like it's not really. It's not. It's. And I know there's other teams in a similar situation. All of the Big Ten, most of the Big Ten, and SEC teams are also awash in resources. But yeah, I do think that's the case. That you have to win to validate this feeling that hey, Nebraska's got a great plan. Nebraska appears to have an excellent plan on how to manage everything that's going on in college sports and the right people at the top. But it it's a bottom line deal, and you have to back that up with victories.
Mitch, speaking of Troy Dannon, did it move your needle at all that he is now part of the college football playoff committee?
Yeah, I mean Nebraska hasn't had anybody in that spot. You've seen uh, you've seen committee members come and go, and I guess Tom Osborne was on the committee
Osborne
at the
was,
beginning. Yeah,
yeah.
right. Caught myself there, but somebody in charge in the moment in the athletic department, and Osborne certainly could have come back and talked to what was that? The CFP started in 2014. It was he on at the beginning for 1 year with Pelini and then with Mike Riley. I don't think that Tom Osborne and Mike Riley were having conversations about what the CFP committee might be looking for in an at-large resume. I can guarantee you that Troy Dannon and Matt Rule are going to have those conversations. Now we might be moving into an era with the direction that the CFP is going to go and how it picks teams, that there's really not a whole lot of point for the committee other than like to determine if Notre Dame has a playoff worthy resume. If you're talking about 4 teams from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten, this amount from the Big 12 and ACC, like you're really going to be limiting at some point the number of at-large teams that get in there. So is the committee just going to exist for Notre Dame for the top, to pick the top group of 5 team and then to like seed everybody? I mean, so maybe you're going to take some in the near future, some value away from having Nebraska, having Troy Dannen in that room. But even if so, or if there are more at larges, if they go to 3 at large spots, you in the past, Dannen and Rule have had to kind of sit back and talk to people and speculate about what the committee was valuing most, and now they're going to be a part of it. They're going to know. So to me, that's relatively important.
Mitch, when you're talking about kind of this middle pack, I've been going through this mental exercise the last handful of weeks, and if Nebraska's going to make a move and we talk about winning, the middle of the Big Ten seems exceptionally thick, whether it's Rutgers or Minnesota or Iowa or UCLA or Illinois or Michigan, USC. It seems like there's a lot to wade through once you get past Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon. If that's the case for you, and Nebraska's going to knock on that door to get into more than the upper half, top 7, 8 of the Big Ten, will it be because of their consistency or because they've made a few more key plays as the separator versus like teams?
Good question. I guess I would look at the NFL because I think when you were describing the middle of the Big Ten, like the bulk of the Big Ten, my mind went to the NFL and how in most years there's 2 to 3 teams that stand out and look like the cream of the crop. And then there's this big giant mess of 20 teams or so that all could potentially be in the next level. And then you have a few at the bottom. And I think that's kind of what the Big Ten is, with the numbers that it has on a proportioned scale. So, but I don't know that the answer necessarily to your question is the same between the NFL and the Big Ten. To me, in the NFL, it's probably more about consistency. I think in college football, you have to make, and it's the same in pro, but more so in watching Nebraska over the past 10 years, or let's just go the past like 6 years, 7 years since Scott Frost came to Nebraska. So his 7 years. I think it's more about making plays in moments, making big plays, like stepping up when the game is on the line, converting a final drive, making a special teams, making a difference in a key moment on special teams, avoiding big mistakes. So, and I think that's still a big separator. As college football and the NFL get more similar, like that's still a big separator between the two games. Like the big moments are gonna matter more in college football when you're starting to chart like what factors in outcomes.
Let me ask you something. I like, because the breakdown gave me a mental image.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you Illinois, Ohio State, Iowa. Is your answer the same, or does it vary within those 3 games?
That's what, yeah.
Nebraska against those 3 teams?
Illinois, Ohio State, and Iowa.
Oh yeah, I mean, against Ohio State, you absolutely have to have the big moments. You're going to have to make big plays because you're not going to go toe-to-toe with them every single play.
And that game boiled down to
them making a couple more plays.
Yep. The 4th down.
Game, especially than Nebraska did.
Iowa is obviously about matching their consistency. And and you don't want your opponents to dictate everything about the flow of the game and how it's going to be won and lost, but it's kind of unavoidable against those two. I don't know where to slot Illinois in it this year. I think that they probably go more toward the Ohio State side, like explosive potential with Illinois, very good quarterback. Like, I mean, hey, people are saying it's top 10 to 15 team.
Isn't that wild to say out loud that they're closer to Ohio State than Iowa? Like, that's how people are looking at them. You're right, but that's a weird thing to say out loud.
Yeah, I don't know that I see it necessarily. I mean, I would want to watch them early in the season. I don't know if that's the way it's going to play out, but that's the perception nationally for sure.
Okay, who's 4 or 5 for you right now? Behind Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, whatever order you have. Like who's your mind tell you?
I put Michigan in that.
So get your benefit. They get mine too.
Yeah.
But I just think the talent, like the base level of talent, is how they recruit, what they can get out of the portal.
So
I mean, Michigan Michigan in a down year this year, where Michigan and very strong at the end, but still 2 defensive linemen drafted in the first half of the first round. Like the base level of talent is just, and it's not like, well, those guys are gone, so their talent. No, like they're going to replace them with not equal players.
4 guys go in the first 2 rounds between.
Yeah. Well, and you would have the corner go in the first round if it weren't for the medicals.
Right. Okay. So I put Michigan in that 4 or 5 group.
Illinois or SC next?
Well, I mean, my mind was on SC because for the same reason, but haven't proven it, obviously, in the Big Ten. And I think there's still a transition period that USC is going through. I don't think, Oregon dispelled some of that last year, but is it Illinois? I still don't know enough about the roster beyond Altmaier to make me confident in saying that. It might well be the case, but I guess I'll just believe the narrative about Illinois right now and go with them. But I'm not feeling super confident about saying that Illinois is. I feel like I know more of what Iowa is going to be than I know what Illinois is going to be. Not that Iowa's like the next team in there in number 5, but you could say Illinois. You could. I think it's open. Like I think that's the spot in like Michigan hasn't cemented its place there either with a freshman quarterback and questions about its roster. I think like after the top of the league, like there's a lot of room for programs to jockey and you could have somebody who might look like the 8th or 9th team right now that ends up in the 3 spot. We're not even talking about Indiana after the season that it had, but I'll believe it when I see it. If they can like repeat if they repeat as a double-digit win team this year, then Curt Cignetti like is the best coach in the Big Ten.
So will it be the trifecta? So a couple of our national guys, kind of globally, 30,000-foot view, are not buying Indiana. I closer to am than am not, and I'm not saying they win another 11, 12 games. No, but I don't think they fall off the map either. Where are you on IU, generally speaking, this year?
I think they'll have a winning season and, take last year out of the equation by the Indiana standard. That's really good. I don't think that they're going to go back and be in the college football playoff. Everything was great about the way that it broke. Things broke for Indiana, like the way the schedule set up, and it was a perfect arrangement. And Cignetti and Curtis Rourke and those guys deserve a ton of credit for what they did. It wasn't like it was handed to them or it was forces outside of their control. No, they controlled it and they got it done. But there are a lot of programs out there that are very competent and can't do that. So to do it 2 years in a row, I don't think so. But I think he's building something there. I think in addition to like the high end that you saw last year, and they got really confident, and it just doesn't always work out that way. But in addition to that, he's building a foundation, and I think they're going to come back to earth a bit this year. And we saw that at the end of last season when they started playing really good teams. but it's still going to be good. Like they're a bowl team.
You have a dark horse that interests you?
Right now in May, no, I not even sure how to classify that. Like who you would
So I talk about that middle pack all.
UCLA dark horse.
Their win total is 5.5, so they would count as a dark horse.
All right, I'll just go there.
So Rutgers, UCLA, and who's the
Washington?
other team? All have 5.5 as their win total.
Of those three, I'd probably take UCLA.
Yeah,
we underestimate
no. Here, shocker. It's Rutgers, Wisconsin, and UCLA, and no one talks about Wisconsin. And yesterday in our chat, Mitch, somebody asked me the question: over under of games in which Fickell gets fired in.
Yeah, that seems to be a discussion point now.
Okay, like I thought it was. I was like, whoa.
That's the second time I've heard that this week.
Huh. Okay.
Not over under, but
probably show.
It was kind of like, does he make it to the end of the year? Question. So same thing. I don't know. I don't know that I'm there on Wisconsin right now.
Seems early.
Part of this with me, like I answer your question about Illinois and I say I don't know, and who's the dark horse, I don't know. Like I haven't gotten to that point in my off season where I've taken a hard look at everybody in the Big Ten. Was waiting for still waiting for some of the dust to settle on the second round of portal.
Did you understand grandfathering deal for the settlement?
What's the question? Do I understand it?
The grandfathering clause in the settlement for this new proposal?
Well, if there's a grandfathering clause, because we're waiting to see, unless something came out in the last half hour, we're waiting to see what is going to be in the revised proposal from the NCAA. There was talk on Monday that it wouldn't be a grandfather clause, that it would be an assurance that players who had objected to the previous rule, to the 105, were going to get relief. We're going to get a spot on a team, and that there were several dozen athletes in this position nationally. That to me didn't seem like something that was going to make the judge real happy. And
it's so ambiguous.
The grandfather thing. So what I heard yesterday, or what I read yesterday in some media reports, was that the Big 12, maybe, that schools were going to get the choice whether they wanted to have a grandfather clause. And I don't know that one is going to make everybody happy. There's one person who has to be happy in order for this thing to be approved, and that's the federal judge, Claudia Wilkin. I understand how the grandfather thing could potentially work. You just say everyone who has remaining eligibility and is on a roster as of June 1st or May 15th, 2025, you can finish out your time at the school, and you will not count against the 105. And then they can kind of figure out a way from there to scale it down. So if Nebraska's number is placed at 120 for this year, and that would be higher than many other schools, and maybe that's something that it can determine on its own, then in 2026, maybe it goes 50% of the way closer down to 105. So you're at 108. And then the next year you're at 105. I could see it working like that. And I hope it's something like that, because that seems to make sense. Where you don't want to be is in that spot where there's much of any likelihood at all that the judge can say nope, and because then we have chaos in college sports for the rest of this year.
And you believe her when she says this is it, or I'm tossing the whole
I don't know. I guess, yeah. I mean, you can't bluff that. I mean, you can, but we've kicked it down.
Leave herself any wiggle room.
We've kicked it down the road so far. I feel like now it's now or never. Like you got to approve it or deny it. And if they deny it, then it's going to trial, and that could take years.
This is the thing that she's been harping on literally since the beginning. Like, I just don't understand why the powers that be in the NCAA,
I know.
I don't understand why they are trying to play around with it. Like, am I missing something where a grandfather clause is overly punitive to certain teams? Because I don't understand why they wouldn't just say, like, yep, everybody that's there is cool. You have to be at 105 by July 1st, 2027, or whatever the date is, right? But everybody until then, we're cool. Like this is the one thing she's been stuck on this entire time. And they seem to not take her seriously. Like, I don't think they want to play around with this, yet they continue to do it. Am I missing something about why?
No doubt. No, I'm with you. Think about if they do play around with it, and she says, "Fine, I'm going to deny this," and it ends up going to trial, and it takes so many more. It takes years, and there's legal. The legal fees alone are going to be in the millions, and then the jury or whoever would determine the outcome of this thing, the money that the NCAA is agreeing to pay in the settlement, you can be guaranteed it's going to be higher in the outcome of a trial, probably in the order of billions of dollars higher when it all shakes down. So why would you mess around about roster limits, which are such a small part, relatively speaking, in the overall case?
This settlement is handing them a win on a silver platter. Like, I don't understand. Like,
much of a win as you can get. Yeah, they're still paying $3 billion in back pay to former athletes, but
they got off cheap with that.
They did, because if you don't accept this,
it'll be more if they go to trial.
I would say this protects them so much from other things. If this gets accepted, like, they have to be out of their minds to be playing around on such a minor issue in the grand scheme of what this is.
I totally agree. Like, it's their own existence they're playing around with.
Exactly. Like, this could be existentially detrimental to them.
Let me get you out of here on this, Mitch. I love
preaching to the choir, man.
This new format, because you get a smart dude, you just talk to him. Where are you with how serious? How much do you care? Do you like what they're trying to be proactive? Where are you on Sherrone Moore and the self-imposed? And I don't mean to be silly about it. It just seems silly with how they went about it.
I went off on this yesterday. I kind of had my say. I think that Michigan, if they're going to suspend him for weeks 3 and 4 and do that like arbitrarily, how about weeks 1 and 10 instead? Like, they should suspend him for the New Mexico game and the Purdue game in Ann Arbor. Like, if you just get to pick the weeks, why not do that? You just get to pick, right? Like,
apparently.
Yeah. Or weeks 1 and 3, suspend him for New Mexico and Central Michigan. They're home games. It's tough. It's tough. You need your coach on the road. So I like, why would you choose to suspend your head coach for the conference opener? Like, it's not a walk in the park. I get that Nebraska's not what Nebraska once was, but
maybe they wanted to do the Big Ten a solid and still let Moore get his dessert in Norman. I don't know.
Yeah. So there's this. He needs to go back to his alma mater. They're going to recognize him. Well, too bad you don't get to pick. You got suspended. Like, you take your medicine. Like, I don't care if it's your alma mater.
That was my have your cake and eat it too moment yesterday. Yeah. I didn't understand it, but I did get the fact that, Mitch, I don't know what a bleeding heart you are or aren't, but are you cool with the fact that it's Oklahoma's idea and you didn't want to, like, it's they're the ones honoring him, so you acquiesce, or no? He's like, no.
No. If you're going to be suspended, you should be suspended for the first 2 games. I mean, come on. We're going to pick week 3 and 4. Like, you don't get to set the terms of your suspension. Apparently you do, but you shouldn't be able to. And I think I'm happy it's happening, because I think it makes for a really great storyline. Like, all of a sudden, I know that the Nebraska-Michigan game is September 20th. Like, previous to yesterday or Monday, like, I knew it was the Big Ten opener. It was on my radar. Like, it's going to be a huge game, especially if Nebraska can beat Cincinnati and be 3-0. But now all of a sudden, like, that game has taken on a different level of importance, because Michigan has said, we really don't need our head coach to win that. Okay. Send your freshman quarterback, throw him into the Wolves, put the game at night. Ask Shedeur Sanders if that's hard to do or not.
That's our guy, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, appreciate the time as always. Great stuff.
I appreciate it, Mitch.
Thanks, guys.
That's Mitch
The head
Sherman.
shake was great. He's like, nah.
That's Mitch Sherman from the Athletic.
I'm not riding with it.